are Egyptologists, scholars, and others still arguing about the race of the ancient Egyptians? Well, it's because there are depictions of people with blue eyes as well as mummies with straight blonde and red hair found throughout ancient Egypt. This has created a continuing controversy to prove whether the ancient Egyptians were white or black. So let's examine some things and see if we can find out when Egypt was white. Let's begin with this article from the Collector entitled, "Were Ancient Egyptians Black?" Let's look at the evidence. Some historians, archaeologists, and writers over the years have argued that ancient Egypt was predominantly black civilization populated by sub-Saharan Africans. Their research shows how ancient Egyptians once called the land of Egypt and the entire African continent Kemet, meaning land of the black people. Some scholars even argue that all black people are descended from ancient Egypt. These scholars say that there is much evidence showing how ancient Egypt was ruled and governed by various black leaders. One was Myherpri. They know of his skin color from his mummy and from illustrated manuscripts in which he appeared darker skinned than the more widely circulated images of Egyptians. Another prominent black leader was Queen Nefertari. She is often identified as black, and it is said that her skin color was worshipped because it echoed the color of both the fertile earth and the netherworld and death. Her mummy is in remarkably good condition and reveals her dark skin and braided hair. So when you look at these images, it's hard to imagine why the issue is still so controversial. When faced with evidence that the ancient Egyptians had Negroid features, Europeans will come up with the next best option and say, ancient Egypt was always ethnically diverse, so the Egyptians could not be classed as belonging to any one racial category. Well, why were they ethnically diverse? Let's do a little digging to find out why. Think Africa says there is evidence of the civilization of the ancient Egyptians going back to Badarian culture. We're talking about 4400 BCE to 4000 BCE. The Badarian culture is one of the earliest known prehistoric cultures in Upper Egypt, dating to the late Neolithic period. So ancient Egypt is referring to the time period from 4400 BCE to 35 BCE. What happened after that time period? After 305 BCE, the Ptolemies became the rulers of Egypt and took the title of Pharaoh. They came to rule Egypt after the arrival of Alexander the Greek. Reigning for nearly 3 centuries, the Ptolemies were the longest and final dynasty of ancient Egypt. They presented themselves as both Greek kings and Egyptian pharaohs. The Ptolemies considered themselves Egyptian. They wore Egyptian clothes and worshipped Egyptian gods and began to learn the ancient Egyptian language. Royal decrees were first written and recorded in ancient Egypt and then recorded in ancient Greek. The Ptolemies presented themselves as Egyptians. So once again, we have a case of identity theft. Here you can see this long list of Ptolemaic rulers from 305 to 30 BCE. What do you think happened to them when they died? They were embalmed. in the same manner as the pharaohs that came before. According to the Smithsonian Institution, after death, the pharaohs of Egypt usually were mummified and buried in elaborate tombs. Members of the nobility and officials often received the same treatment, and occasionally common people. So yes, it should not be surprising that some of the mummies are those of deceased European pharaohs. Once again, during the Ptolemaic period, Egypt was ruled by non-Egyptians. The Ptolemies were Macedonians, and they were put in place by Alexander, the Greek of Macedon. They were not native Egyptians, but Greek and Macedonian by descent, pretending to be something that they were not: African. Herodotus said there can be no doubt that the Colchians are an Egyptian race. His own conjecture was founded first on the fact that they were all black-skinned and had woolly hair. He also said that the Egyptians had burnt skin, flat noses, thick lips, and woolly hair. Gaston Maspero, a 19th century French Egyptologist, stated that by the almost unanimous testimony of ancient Greek historians, they, as in the ancient Egyptians, belonged to the African race. Can't we just look at how they painted themselves? Galen said the hair of the Egyptians, and in general all people who inhabit hot, dry places, have poor growth and is black, dry, curly, and brittle. But the icing on the cake is found in Scripture. Genesis 10 lists Mitzrayim as the son of Ham, one of Noah's 3 sons. Mitzrayim is the progenitor of the Egyptians, as the name Mitzrayim is referring to Egypt. So the next time a European says that the ancient Egyptians were Europeans, ask them to explain why religious leaders justified slavery using the curse of Ham myth. If the ancient Egyptians were Europeans, then we also have to believe that they are Hamites and they are cursed, but not with black skin. They were cursed with white skin. So which one is it? If Europeans want to be Egyptians, then according to their own rhetoric, they need to accept what comes with it. Or better yet, Europeans can just stop lying